When I first started with bonsai, I didn't know what I was doing with repotting, but over the last decade, I put in hours of study and repotted dozens of trees to bring myself to a place that I'm confident when I repot a bonsai, I'm going to make it look great and set it up for its foundations of growth over the next few years. What you're going to watch here is a full in-depth demonstration of how I repot bonsai trees, using this tree here as an example. You'll see the process from start to finish so you can understand what you need to do, but more importantly, why you need to do it. Feel free to grab a notepad and a pen, pause the video, take notes as you're watching, and use this when you're repotting your own bonsai so you can use it as a guide. Drop any questions you have in the comments below if anything's unclear. I'm really happy to answer them and help you guys out. So enjoy the demo and let me know what you think. First thing we're going to do when we repot this is to remove all this moss that's on top. We use moss to stabilize the top layer of soil. This helps to retain moisture in the soil and equalizes the water balance through the pot, and it also stabilizes the soil particles, which lets roots grow in the full height of the container, which is really important in bonsai because we've got a shallow container. So we'll pull this moss off. We can keep this moss, grind it up and apply it to other trees and other repots. I usually dry it out first before I grind it up, just because it's easier. So that's where we start. As we're pulling the moss off, I'm keeping an eye on the nabari, the base of the tree, to see where it might have grown or expanded over the past couple of years of growth. This tree hasn't been in this pot. Well, it's been in this pot for decades actually, but it's been only a couple of years since its last repot, and ideally I would have kept it in this pot a lot longer, for a few more years, but the pot is broken. It's falling to pieces, as you can see. So we need to repot now because I don't want it to fall to pieces in the middle of summer when the thing's trying to keep itself cool. So we are where we are. You can see the soil I've used is akadama. I've just used pure akadama, and we have lots and lots of fully intact soil particles in here. These usually break down as the tree grows, and the fact that these are still intact so high up the root ball tells me that this tree could stay in this pot for a lot longer, and it would benefit from staying in here a lot longer, but we are where we are. So the next thing we want to do is take the tree out of the container. So very carefully, particularly with this tree because the pot is falling to pieces, I'm going to lift it up, I'm going to turn it over and see what kind of tie down wires we have in here. So we've got one here, two coming across here. You can see this is very neat and tidy. The tidiness of the bottom of a container is usually a good indicator of how clean and methodical the repot in general was. So this looks like it was a nice job. I'm going to get my wire cutters and I'm going to cut those wires. I'm going to cut them slap bang in the middle. You don't want to start off cutting them close to the hole, because if you do that you can leave a snaggy, I'll demonstrate on this one. If you leave this snaggy wire here and you pull that through the root ball, oh hello spider, if you pull that through the root ball it's going to rip through all the roots it passes. So you cut in the middle, you pull it out nice and straight, and then you cut it to not have that hook. And I'll fix this one. Come on, bye-bye spider friend. Okay, tie downs are done. Next I'm going to take a comma. This tool is called, it's not expensive, and it looks like a saw. It's got this serrated blade, but we are not sawing through the roots here. We are pulling. You insert it and you drag it out, and that way it frees the roots from the side of the container but we don't want to saw through the roots. We don't want to overly damage the roots if we can help it. So I'm going to do 2 sides of this. It should come quite freely. So once you've gotten right down to the bottom, it's a bit sticky there, that's good. And round, okay, so I've done 2 corners. I'm going to see if I can get this tree out. When you're pulling a tree out of a pot, you always want to keep a close eye on the tree and soil line. If the soil and the tree are moving as one, which you can see I'm pulling on the rock and the tree are very much grown together. They've been grown together for decades. If I pull this here, the whole root ball is moving, which is fantastic. So this slides out. If the tree was moving, but the soil was staying still, you want to back off and see what's tethering the tree in. Because if you pull the tree out of that root ball, then you can do a lot of damage. So here we are, tree is out. This pot has all sorts of holes in it where it shouldn't. It's going to go in the bin. Okay, the next thing we want to do is see if we can uncover any further nabari around the base of the tree. We've got some nice roots here. It's not as nicely barked as the rest of the tree. It had a lot of moss covering it, which has prevented some nice bark development, but with time that will improve so long as we keep the moss off it for the next few years. So starting always at the root ball and working outwards, teasing away the top layer of soil to see if there's any nice significant growth of the nabari. I'm not expecting anything much here. With this tree having had such little time since I last repotted it, it's unlikely that it's significantly improved its nabari. As I'm going around, I'm noticing here there's a lot of nasty dark black soil. So before I repotted this a couple of years ago into Akadama, I know that it was potted up in a peat and horticultural grit combination, which is really going to decompose and rot over time. So we want to try and get rid of that as much as we can. We've got some mycorrhiza development here as well, which is a good sign. This is fungus, really good for the soil health, the root ball health. It helps with the exchange of nutrients between the roots and the soil. Okay, so I'm just going to clear down a bit more this top layer of soil. These spindly little roots at the top, just going to be fragile with them. This is a bit of a funny shaped root here. You don't want to, if you find these and you don't want these roots, there's a real temptation to just rip them out, but if you do that, you can damage. They might be deeply tangled up with a bunch of other roots that you do want. So try to resist the temptation to just rip. Instead, come in and prune with your pruning shears. I do still, come on, we're human. I do still pull them out sometimes because it's super satisfying, but don't. Really thick root here. Interested to see what that's attached to, but it's probably not going to be that useful, and we'll need to take it off. Let's see what we come to. More nasty black soil. As much as I can, I want to get this nasty soil out because it's going to rot. It's going to hold on to a lot of water, which is going to be, oh man, losing bark. It's going to hold on to a lot of water, which is not going to be good for the tree's development. We want lots of air circulating through the pot, and that air helps to stimulate root growth. And we want a really dense ball of fine roots. Just the root here, I've kind of mashed it up with my chopsticks. I'm going to prune it. oh God, there's grit here getting in the way of the shears. So as you come in and you do a repot, you're going to damage roots like this. It's inevitable. If you prune a root with a clean cut, it's gonna heal really nicely. If you tear and rip and scratch out roots, they're not going to heal so well. So we're going to do some damage as we come through. It's inevitable. It's part of the process. But we want to clean up after ourselves if we can, because that's going to really help the tree recover from the repotting process. Oh, got a big. So we got this nice. Hopefully this comes through. Let me get a bit closer. So we've got this new. This was kind of hidden. The soil was around here. So we got some more interesting roots here developing, and then we got this crossing root. This is going to girdle this nice root here. I don't want that, so I'm gonna prune the crossing root out. As we're repotting, we can't prune everything away, otherwise we'll end up with no roots and the tree's not going to do well. It's not going to survive, most likely. So we have a certain amount of roots you can prune, and people will give you different numbers. I don't think generally most bonsai practitioners actually know how much of the roots they have removed, pruned versus kept. And in particular, what you need to have is this core of the roots in the soil where the soil itself hasn't been disturbed, because you do so much damage just by the soil separation from the roots. So start at the top, because this is like really important that we get this right for the aesthetics of the tree, improving the look of it. So we start at the top, so we don't have to make any compromises on pruning decisions here. And then work on the next thing that's going to be in the way. So the next point of failure, and then the next one and the next one, and then finally the tree will be fitting into its new pot, no problem. But yeah, just when you're doing a repot, do the things that you really want to do, the most important bits first. Don't get carried away. I know it's easy, but don't get carried away on this. It's really satisfying getting rid of these side roots and the base and everything, but save that. Save that for the right time, and start off with the important bits. Okay, and as I say that, I really want to dig into this black soil here. I'm going to hold back because we do need to get these matted roots gone first. The walls of the container and the base of the container, they tend to be the warmest parts of the root ball, and also have more air than the core of the root ball. And those are things that really encourage root growth. So warmth and oxygen. So you'll find these mats of roots where the roots are growing, particularly because the roots want to grow long. They want to grow long to create stability for the tree. The roots will grow long, and then the tree can use that basis to grow high. So again, here, I've really torn that up. That's okay. I don't want that big long root. You see, it's an important thing for beginners. This looks like a big substantial root that I've just taken off here. But in actual fact, this root for this tree is not serving a lot of function. It's not providing a lot of water and nutrition for the tree. It's just grown because the tree wants to grow these big roots to stabilize itself. So we can prune it off, no worries. That's a crappy root. Same here. That root's shit. Don't want that. There's an old saying. It's along the lines of you want a handful of steel wool, not a bag of spaghetti, or something along those lines. So thick noodly roots, don't care about, but the handful of steel wool, that's what you get by not disturbing the entire root ball. That's what you get by leaving some of it completely undisturbed by any of our tools. So I found some wire. This is one of the wires. I don't know where it's coming out. I don't know what it was actually latched onto. I'm gonna use my chopstick to push it. Here we are. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what that was holding onto, but it seems to have done the job. So I don't really need to take too much off the bottom here right now. I've taken off that big mat of bottom roots. That has to go. Here's another wire. This needs to come out. I can't find where that is. This isn't coming. I'm not going to force it. You don't want to force things through the root ball. The fact that it's not coming tells me that it's catching on something and I could do damage by pulling it out. So I'm going to prune these at the top here, and then I'm going to see if I can push them out. Oof. Root ball's starting to creak there. You see that mobility there, independent of the tree? That's not a good thing. That's a sign that we need to be careful. It's not the end of the world. It's always going to happen the more you work on the root ball, but it's just a sign we need to take care because we don't want this whole thing to fall apart. I'm going to tackle these sides. All of these long spaghetti roots, we don't want them. They need to come out. They tend to circle and they can be quite long. They tangle with each other. So just try and tease them out as you can and then prune them off. I'm not interested in keeping them. They're long and flappy and not very functional. Again, big chunks. And if you prune these back nicely, then at that prune site you're going to get new root growth. And ideally, you'll get more root growth. Where you've pruned it, you might get a couple of new rootlets coming out. So instead of having one root, you got two. That's the ideal. I'm interested in this big root here. And just giving it a wiggle, teasing it out to see what it's attached to. Because ideally we don't want this big long thick root growing. I don't want to just chop it out if it's one of the core roots of the tree, though. I doubt it is, but you're just better off knowing in advance before you make the cut. Okay, this big long thing, not interested in. Here we go. Okay, so yes, big fat chunky root looks important, but what's on the end of it? Not very much. That's going to come out. Okay, so this is the pot I want to try and use. It's fairly similar to the original pot. It's got feet. It's quite well ornamented. I'm trying to stay true to the original design of the tree. So this tree doesn't fit currently because there's lobes here cut down the size of the pot quite a bit. So we need to do a bit more reduction. to get this thing to fit in. So, gorgeous. This one I probably should have done this before I went to that stuff. Because even if the black stuff, if it ends up being choice between that stuff and that, probably want to have another black stuff. Okay, so if we have the corners, try and fit it into the lobes. Whoa, what's that? It's not a mistake. Not into the black stuff here. Okay, okay, so I'm always afraid of it. In it goes. So yeah, I'm really happy with that actually. Looking really nice. The front is quite straightforward and quite memorable for me in this tree. I've got it angled so we have a nice crossing root here. I don't want it to be perpendicular like that. Although, do I? Before we write that off, interesting. So having it but more on an angle, this extra nice little bit of root here, I think makes a fairly big impact. But what's really nice about that change is there is some angle to this. The more you turn it, the greater that angle is. So it gives a bit more movement to the tree. It exposes more of that back root. Yeah, I like that. Okay. And will it fit in? Not quite as it is. If we take a little bit more off the front here and rest this root, big thick chunky part. I don't want to prune that too much more because I don't want to lose that thick root, but we can tuck it in. Tucks in. Nice. Okay, I'm happy with that. So now we know the tree is going to fit in the pot. We've selected our front. I'm going to take this tree and pop it away. The next thing we need to do is prepare the pot. So first of all, I'm going to clean it. I'm going to get rid of any soil that was dripped into it, any marks on the outside of it, just using a raggy sheet that I keep on hand for this kind of stuff. Next is going to be drainage screens. So I got some screens here. This stuff's so cheap, and yet people are so stingy with it and always end up cutting their screens way too small. Just don't do that. This stuff costs like pennies. So get yourself nice big screens that will definitely, no shadow of a doubt, cover the holes with no gaps. No soil's going to fall through there. We need to tie those down, so we need some wire. Make these two circles with legs, prune it off. If you're cheap like me, use some old aluminium wire. Put them down through here, flip it over. Going to bend them flat. Do them long to start with, okay? Then, when you've got it in position, nice and snug, prune them off so they don't get in the way of anything else, okay? So we now have these two drainage screens. They're not going to slide around or anything when we put the tree in. They're going to be rock solid. They're going to stay there. So the next thing we need to do is secure this tree in the pot. It's got a really strong root here. It's got a really strong root here that we can tie to on one side. And I'm thinking if we could stick a bamboo stake or something in here on this side, that should give us 2 points of security. It's got a very stable, flat, established base, and that should be secure enough to keep this tree in the pot. With our strategy in mind, before I go and cut any of the tie-down wires, I'm going to try and create that stake just to validate it's going to be secure enough. I'm not convinced because of the rock and the other roots there, but we'll see. So, got a little wooden stake. It's not bamboo. Bamboo would be the ideal because it's less likely to rot away, but from my experience, if you get some good hardwood, does the trick. So we're going to push the stake in as far as it'll go, and then we're going to hammer it in. And so this needs to take enough tension. This is not going to be an unstable tree by any means. It needs to take enough tension to hold this thing still while it gets buffeted by wind, gets knocked by my cats. I mean, not expecting it, but potentially falling off it's going in any further. You know. So it doesn't need to be, it's not like we're doing some sort of radical rock planting and it needs to defy gravity. So I think that's going to do us. And now that that's there, we need to cut it to size. Okay, got a little stump there to tie down to, got a root on the other side to tie down to. And as this sits in the pot, we're going to need 2 wires here for tying and another 2 on this side. And that tells us our tie down strategy in terms of where we're going to put these wires. So if we basically need 2 coming out of this hole and 2 coming out of this hole. So I'm going to use some fairly thick aluminium wire. We don't need anything stronger. So 2 lengths of wire. So kind of want this right angle. And then you're going to put it against the holes and then pinch it where it needs to have another right angle. This should slot nicely in there. This one, same again. Okay, that's done. Next we need some soil. When I potted this up the first time, I used just Akadama, 100% Akadama on its own. Heard from some professionals that was a really good thing to do for larch, so that's what I tried. And I think where I live, in my climate, based in Scotland, that holds too much moisture. So what I'm going to try this time is a mixture of Akadama, pumice and lava. That's going to give more oxygen to the soil and should therefore help with root growth. So I put a thin layer on the bottom of the soil. I've made a mound in the middle, and what I'm going to do is as I'm placing this tree into the pot, I'm loosely putting those securing tie wires where they need to go, just so it's easy for them. So I've got it on top of the mound. Clearly it's too high. The idea is you put it in and then you shift it around in the soil to get it to the desired position. I think that's good. I think that's where I want it in general. Now I'm just going to still not fully secure these guys. I'm going to just hand tighten them to get them sort of in place. I'm going to get those tails out of the way. And the same here. Okay, so those ties are not tight, they're not doing anything yet. The tree is wanting to fall back away from the camera. I'm going to start putting some soil in, and I'm going to do it in a way that, being aware of how I want the tree to sit in the pot. So since it's falling backwards, I need to put some soil in at the back to prop it up and bring it forwards. So that's where I'm going to start. And I'm not worrying about spilling the soil. I don't want to waste this soil, so anything that's spilled, I'm going to collect it. But I've got a clean collecting tray underneath the workbench in the minute, so it's not a problem that I make a mess on top of the bench, because I can still collect the soil afterwards. And then I'm going to grab a clean chopstick. I'm going to introduce the soil under the tree. And focusing initially on this back portion to try and get it where I want it to be. Now you only get one chance to do this, to get this tree in the pot and get it looking the way you want it to. So make sure you're happy with the front, the angle, and the rest of it. You can, I'm struggling to get the angle I want here. You do have the option to take the tree out, start again. You should avoid it if you can, which is why I'm trying to be strategic with my soil to try and do it that way. Let's see if we can manage it. So the chopstick, you put it on the edge of the container, push it down until it hits the bottom, and then as you pull it out, it leaves a space behind it that soil will fall into and fill. So let's see, are we getting any closer? I think we are. So this is going to leave less space for us to fill at the front, which is fine. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is tighten this tie wire here. This one is going to be better at securing the tree forwards than the other one because it's a bit further back. So yeah, that's a little bit of wiggle, but fairly secure. We basically want this thing rock solid, not moving in any way independently of the container. It's not always possible. We endeavour to do it. Kind of screwed this up. Okay. So now, there we are. If we pick up the tree, it's got a bit of wobble. That's fine. We're not filling the soil, but yeah, it's secure. Tying the tree in to the pot, making sure it's not moving. That's one of the points of a repot where a tree lives or dies, basically. If you don't secure the tree in the pot, if you let it rattle around, then it's not going to grow new roots. If the tree is moving in the pot, it's dying. It's not going to grow new roots. It's not going to have a chance to stabilize itself. Where there's gaps, as you Move the chopstick back and forth. Where there's gaps, the soil falls into the pot. See there? It falls and falls and falls and falls. So you want a little pile. Hold the pile in place with one hand. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is tidy up the top and then do some top dressing with some moss and then water the tree. One really common mistake with beginners is they want to try and keep as much of the soil on top as possible. I fell into this trap when I was a beginner. The fact of the matter is, if you have soil that's above the rim of the container here, it's going to wash away. It's going to fall off. It's not going to survive your watering. And it's not going to harm the tree that happens either. Just remember how much of the root ball we didn't touch. So I'm taking my brush. I'm brushing away all this excess soil on top. We don't want it. It's better that it comes away now rather than being washed away by the water from our hose. So we want a very small gap between the level of the soil and the rim of the container. And that way the container will always catch water and let the water fall through the container. We uncovered this root when we were clearing the top of the nabari. We want to keep it. This, I think, is really important for the continuation of this root. And it's floating outside of the soil. And if we let it do that, it's just going to die off. So I'm going to pin it down with a bit of wire. Get a thinnish piece of wire, make a little hook for it, and we're going to hook it. We're going to push down into the root ball. I'm going to take that root and pin it into there. So that's going to stay inside the pot. We're going to top dress here and have moss to disguise this and keep that moist, and that should hopefully keep that root alive. These other roots here above the surface, these roots aren't going to live. They're not in the soil. We don't really mind if they die, and I'd rather get rid of them now when I can cleanly cut them away and the tree can heal them nicely rather than leaving them scraggly and messy. So for any roots like that, we're going to come back and prune them and just tidy things up. So the next thing we want to do is apply our top dressing. Here I've got some moss, ground up moss. Just rub it over a soil sifter and makes it nice and fine. And we want a light layer of this across the soil. What I tend to do is I sprinkle it on, sometimes fairly heavily, and then spread it out with my fingers. Now, it's really important to get full coverage of the soil, but also it's really important that you don't cover up hard work that you've done. This root here, we worked really hard to uncover that, to get that part of the composition. So we don't want to cover that up with our top dressing now and make our hard work redundant. But equally, this root that we've pinned here, we cover that up and that's going to disguise that wire. So there we are. So once your top dressing has applied, this stuff is light as a feather. It will blow away as soon as you sneeze on it. So take a spray bottle, spray it with a light dusting of water. You see some of it moving around even with that spray bottle. That's okay. And basically when it gets wet, it gets sticky. and it's going to hold it in place even when we water it. You do have to be mindful and gentle when you're watering it and use a fine stream. But this will then grow in place with the soil and form a nice moss covering over time. So the last thing we need to do is take this tree outside. We're going to thoroughly water it. We're going to fill it up with water, let it drain, fill it up, let it drain 3 times. That's going to take all those fine particles of soil out of the pot.